some strategies for managing anxiety or panic attacks in social situations.
Oh,
that one is tricky.
Gosh,
Girl.
this is a doozy.
I mean, like,
Oh god.
since we're just rolling continuously, if you don't like the answer,
Yeah.
you can just scrap the question. It's okay. But if you want to try and attempt it, that's good. That's okay too. Yeah.
I think it's good to try and attempt all of these because it's probably like stuff everyone goes through as well.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think even if
definitely.
it's hard, let's go for it.
Yes.
Yes, go for it. You go
Yes.
for it.
Anxiety and panic attacks. I feel like this is very like I'm quite an anxious person as well, and I deal with a lot of anxiety, and like, so this is definitely something I've had to try and work around. So for me, I'm like a very socially anxious person in general. I hate like going into new social situations. I hate meeting new people. Like even when the camera first started rolling and I was like speaking for the person, I could feel my face going red and I was like, oh my gosh. So a lot of different things. I feel like one of the biggest things is probably like understanding where your anxiety is coming from, and then like thinking about ways that you're comfortable with like working through what it is that's causing you your anxiousness. So one of the biggest things for me is like social situations, talking to new people, and all of that. Sometimes it's hard, but one thing I did personally was I just like forced myself to like get out of my comfort zone. So like in high school, what I did was I signed myself up for the debate team because it was sort of in a controlled setting of like my friends are on the panel with me, but I still sort of have to stand up and like talk in front of a bunch of strangers I've never met before, and I feel like that really helped me. Or like even signing myself up for new committees where it's like you're sort of forced to do things that you're not necessarily comfortable with, but it's not completely like a fish out of water, where you're sort of like going in front of the entire school and like singing a song, kind of thing. And I feel like from there, like it sort of built me up to feel more comfortable in those settings. So it's like that's an example of something I would do to manage my anxiety. Or like if you're anxious about schoolwork, and like I mentioned before, this idea of like always feeling anxious because you were guilty about doing something when you thought you were supposed to do something else. Again, it's sort of like catching yourself and being like, why do I feel so anxious about this thing? What are ways in which I can sort of like bring myself out of that comfort zone a little bit more and maybe like feel more comfortable with what was previously causing me anxiety. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm just rephrasing the question. But yeah, I think just catching yourself in those thoughts of like, okay, I'm feeling really, really anxious right now. What is it that's actually causing me anxiety? And I feel like reasoning with yourself and like walking it through step by step really helps, because then rather than sort of just getting overwhelmed with the emotions, you're sort of breaking it down and you're kind of like, okay, I'm feeling this right now. Why am I feeling this? What can I do to not feel like this? Like, is it something that I can fix, or is it something that I have no control over? If it's something I have no control over, why am I feeling this anxious? If it's something I do have control over, what can I do to stop this from happening again? And I think that was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, like self-reflecting.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And as you just said, like the camera started rolling and you felt nervous. Like, girl, I'm so sweaty right now. I was so nervous. And
like, oh my god.
It's okay to feel that way, because like I feel like to an extent everybody in this room is feeling that way. And once the camera's on, it's like, oh my god, all the attention is on me. But yeah, it's okay to feel that way. And I just want to say, like, I think the second half of the question was talking about panic attacks. And as someone who has gone through their fair share of panic attacks, I want to say that if you need to remove yourself from the situation, you remove yourself from the situation. Because I've noticed that if I stay there, I only make myself feel worse, and I make the other person maybe feel really uncomfortable, and it's like a traumatic experience for everybody involved. To stop that from happening, for me personally, I was like, okay, if I'm feeling this way right now, I need to take a moment, I need to remove myself from the situation, take a couple of deep breaths and just slow yourself down, and just, if you need a dark corner, if you need to sit down, you breathe in and out really slowly. Because I think with panic attacks, it can get bad really quickly.
I think it just keeps building and building
Yeah.
without you even
Exactly.
realizing it.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And yeah, you take a step back, you take a couple of breaths, and you calm yourself and you gather yourself. And if you feel like you're up to being in a social situation, you try again, and that is okay. You can always try again. But if you're not up to it, just excuse yourself and take time out to self-reflect, like you were saying, and go through the why am I feeling this way? What was the reason behind having these sudden, really intense feelings, and what can I do to, stop that, or not really stop that, but like sort of get control of your emotions a little. Because I think it's important to, take a step back, reevaluate the situation, and if you're not comfortable, and I feel like I'm just saying the same thing again and again, but like, reevaluate the situation, and if you're not up to it, it's fine. Because if you're around good company, they will be okay with that. Which I feel like, I think the world is a good place and people are understanding. I hope, but that's what I think.
I feel sorry, you go.
You go.
I feel like understanding like the reason why you're anxious like is really important. I think as an introvert, I feel like anxious in social situations. I completely relate to how you guys feel with the camera on, because I feel the same way. But it's like, I remember there was a period of time where I was anxious, like talking to other people, especially to new people. And it got to the point where I think I was really anxious about like saying the wrong thing, or saying something that was really awkward, or saying something that would like offend someone, and I would always like worry about it. It gave me a lot of anxiety. So like past Ruth came to the conclusion that, if I don't say anything, then like maybe there was nothing to be anxious about. But then you realize that that's not really good for your mental health, because then you don't really like interact with a lot of people. You don't really like make new friends. You don't really, have the sort of socialization that would like, bring you positivity in your like downtime. And so, like, as Joey said, it was about like putting like yourself in uncomfortable situations, and eventually realizing that, people make mistakes, and we all make social mistakes, and there are people that are like more extroverted than me who probably have made more mistakes than me, and in the end they all have friends. Like, we like are forgiving people. We don't really judge people based on like a single remark that's being said. Like, it's more to do with like your friendship and your relationship over a period of time, as opposed to just like one single snapshot. So yeah,
absolutely. I was just gonna say the same. Like, people are forgiving, and you're your worst critique.
I think that's what we often forget. Like, especially for people anxious in social situations, you think like, oh, if I say one thing wrong, they're gonna hate me for the rest of my life, because they're like, oh my gosh, remember that one time she said this?
They're not even gonna remember.
Like, they're not gonna remember. Like,
You're
not the
only
center of the world.
replaying that.
You're the only person overthinking that. Next time you ask them, they'd probably be like, I don't even remember you saying that. Reminding myself that helps so much, because I'm like, they don't care about you that much. You're not that important. But like, rather than as a negative thing, you're like, oh my gosh.
I feel like humbling yourself.
Humbling yourself, honestly. Like, girl,
you're not.
take a few steps down.
Like you are all that, but not all the time. Like, chill out a little.
It don't matter. So I
I
think reminding yourself that as well really helps, because you're like, I have more freedom than I give myself credit for to stay and interact with people how I want to.
And I think another technique that I've learned over the past few years, I used to be like really, really socially anxious. Like, even one-on-one, I would sort of go into a panic. And I think a thing that really helped is just being more present in the conversation, and not like, my thoughts would just sort of go off into tangents. Like, I'd be thinking, oh my gosh, why is this person looking at me like differently? Like, did I say something? Oh no, like, but I think just bringing yourself back to the present, not letting your mind sort of wander off into all sorts of directions, that will that has helped me significantly. So
I really like the idea of like that person's expression. I feel like over-analyzing is such a doozy in social situations. I feel like it just cascades from there. It's like, oh my god, they looked at me funny, did I say something wrong? Oh my god, and then it just escalates. But in reality, it's really not. It's really not deep.
It's not you.
No, I agree.
I actually have a question to ask. To add on to this, because this is just with people who are on the same level as you, like your peers. How do you manage social anxiety when it comes to people in power? Like when you're talking with your professors, when you're in an interview, when you're just talking to your boss. What are some strategies that you have in place just to get over that hill?
I feel like it's a really difficult one because you're talking to someone who you respect a lot, and I think a lot of the intimidation comes from the respect that you have for the other person, but you sort of I guess one thing to realize is they're also a human just like you know, they have hobbies and they have things that they get stressed about, and they're just living like you. So I guess part of it is finding the humanity in the other person rather than viewing them as a profession or a position. But it is really hard, and I'm still finding it really hard when I'm talking to other people more senior doctors at work, for instance, and professors. It is very intimidating.
Because you don't want to say the wrong thing and also you, to an extent, in your mind, this is what I do at times when I really like the person, even in a professional sense or just even a peer. I put them on a pedestal in my mind, they are so awesome, they are so cool, what if I say something wrong, what am I going to do? You can't put them on a pedestal. At the end of the day, you're both human, you're equals to an extent, no matter, even though they are in a position of power, you have to understand that human to human, you are equals. And also sort of sidetracking from that, but also you have to create boundaries as well. And there are times in relationships like these where they might ask you to do too much, or they might say something wrong because it's a workplace or it's a professional place, and sometimes when someone's stressed they may say the wrong thing, and it may be the person in power, the person who's above you, and you just have to hold your ground and have that boundary in place so you don't get hurt and the person opposite you or people around you don't get hurt. That's what I think. And boundaries are important.
That's so true. I think as well, it's very easy to feel upset based on how someone in power responds to you, especially in high pressure jobs. When a senior is stressed, it's very easy for them to come across as rude or dismissive of you. And I think as long as you're being respectful in the conversation, being able to tell yourself what has happened here isn't really my fault. It might be that they have had a stressful day and they were rude to me, but that doesn't take away, or that doesn't reflect how I've been treating them and how if I've been rude or anyway, if that makes sense. So it's sort of just being able to, again, I feel everything I say is just analyze the situation, analyze your thoughts, but kind of being you haven't done anything wrong, so you shouldn't really feel bad about an interaction that has happened. As long as you know yourself, I was respectful, I didn't say anything wrong, you're fine. So you shouldn't really feel bad or anxious if a senior is rude or dismissive of you in that situation. That's kind of on them if they weren't able to regulate their emotions, or they've had a tough day, which is very understandable. Sometimes we get snappy when it's been a bad day, but just being able to understand that as well, because I feel it's very easy to spiral as well if a senior, especially if they are someone that's going to be teaching you for the next few months, or if you need them for a reference or anything, to sort of spiral oh my gosh, what did I do wrong, how am I going to fix the situation, I need to really kiss up to them the next time I see them, because then I feel that makes you even more anxious in future meetings with them, and then you're just never in a comfortable situation, I feel and then so I feel just understanding as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the interactions.
Yes.
Yeah.